Welcome to another Black History Month programming event. It's my pleasure to open the session for Dee Dee's Cry, Mental Health and Survivorship in Communities of Color with Toy Burton, founder and executive director. Just some quick housekeeping information. Just a brief disclaimer: the views expressed by the speakers and workshop facilitators do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the organizing groups. All programming uses the Zoom meeting or webinar format. The webinar format is used to prevent unexpected interruptions. It's not that we don't want to hear your voice. In fact, it is quite the opposite. We definitely want to hear from you. Questions for the speakers can be submitted using the question and answer chat function. Just a quick plug for the Black Project, that's the Black Literacy and Arts Collaborative. They organized the website and were tremendously helpful in creating this programming for this week. They are Boston-based and support resources for literacy and arts in underserved communities, which are predominantly communities of color. They have mentorship programming, storytelling activities to build medical trust. They have a Spread the Love program where they invite strangers to share connections, and then book giveaways. You can learn more about them at theblackproject.org. Similarly, this programming was organized by the People's Heart, which is a health equity and art programming. It's a healthcare institution and community art placemaking collaboration. Its mission is to change institutional healthcare culture, empower underserved patients and communities of color through art and design. They create programming, which includes workshops like this, lectures, pop-up health events, and of course, art on walls. You can learn more about them at thepeoplesheart.org. Now, it is my sincere pleasure to turn it over to Taryn Gathers from McLean Hospital, who will introduce Toy Burton.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I'm Taryn. I'm a nurse at McLean Hospital, and I also am part of their Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And I am so excited to be able to introduce Toy to all of you today. So Toy is the founder and executive director of two organizations, Dee Dee's Cry and the Roxbury Unity Parade. Dee Dee's Cry was named after her sister, Danita Shane Morris, Dee Dee, who died by suicide when she was 23 years old in 1986. Dee Dee's Cry works to create family and community-friendly spaces, events, and activities about mental health and suicide prevention in communities of color. Toy is also the founder and executive director of the Roxbury Unity Committee, Roxbury Unity Parade, which celebrates the culture, diversity, and beauty of Roxbury. Toy also was just recognized at the annual African American Ball this past weekend and received a community service award alongside many other prominent members of our community. So we're so glad to have you here today, Toy, and take it away.
Okay, thank you for that, Taryn. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. And thank you to everyone for inviting me here this morning to share with you about Dee Dee's Cry. Like Taryn said, Dee Dee's Cry is named after my sister who died by suicide when she was 23 in 1986. But I didn't start Dee Dee's Cry until 2017, after I noticed that organizations that focus on suicide prevention and mental health education wasn't really reaching out to Roxbury, Mattapan, Dorchester, to me, communities of color. When I was on their websites, I didn't see anybody who looked like me. And where I saw their events happening, I thought this isn't for someone who lives in Roxbury or Mattapan or Dorchester. I'm like, we're not traveling all the way over there. I was like, I'm going to create something that connects the community to the resources. So with Dee Dee's Cry, our first event was Dee Dee's Cry Suicide Prevention and Easter Egg Hop. So even though we love those who would go to a mental health fair, Dee Dee's Cry wanted to reach those who would bring their families to an Easter egg hop and have the resources there. And that's the way we function ever since, is connecting the community to the resources. Because a lot of times we don't even know that these resources are in our community, or that they even exist, or even that we need them. until we might see that brochure or pamphlet and say, oh, you know what, let me give this organization a call because I could use that service. With Dee Dee's Cry, we do a lot of things. I always say that I don't turn anyone away. Like people will call and ask, and say that they're having problems at work. Can I connect them with someone who does mediation? Like I will not say, well, we don't do that. We're a mental health organization. Whatever your need is, we're going to try to help you with that need. So even at Christmas time, we were giving out the COVID tests on Christmas Day, just because we felt that our community needed that. And we wanted to make sure that the residents that live in Roxbury was receiving that. Christmas time, we also did a toy giveaway. That was our second year doing that. And people was like, what does mental health or suicide prevention have to do with a toy giveaway? It's like wherever we can help to relieve stress, wherever we can be a resource, that's where Dee Dee's Cry is going to be. During COVID, we received a gift from the Resiliency Fund. And at that time, a lot of people was giving away food gift cards. And I was like, what if the need isn't food? What if the need is diapers? What if the needs is school supplies? So Dee Dee's Cry, what we did, we gave away Amazon gift cards. And with that, it was electronically. So people didn't have to stand in the line or come to us, or we didn't have to go to them, because at that time it was the height of COVID. So we was able to supply that. So that's what I mean, like wherever we can assist and be a help, we're gonna be that help. Dee Dee's Cry also, we also offer a weekly group, and that is still virtual. It's called Healing Begins With Me. Because not only did my sister die by suicide, I am also a suicide attempt survivor. And the attempt that put me into the hospital, I was 25 years old at the time. And even though I was released from the hospital, I didn't receive any services. So I went back to doing inflicting self-harm upon myself. At the time, I was an alcoholic and a drug addict, because I was just trying to numb the pain that I was feeling inside, like just dealing with traumas that I've never addressed. And so with Dee Dee's Cry, that's why I call it Cry, even though like I named it after my sister. I called it Cry because I felt like people are crying out and we're not really listening. Like my drug use was a cry. My self-afflictions was a cry. My alcoholism was a cry. And people cry in different ways. The cry could be sleeping too much or sleeping too little, or eating too much or eating too little. But I always say that we can no longer hear the cries of others and do nothing. So Dee Dee's Cry is about hearing those cries and helping the cries, and just trying to be a help. Like, you're gonna keep hearing me say help, because that's what we want to do. So even when I started Dee Dee's Cry, it's not like I'm a clinician. I didn't go to school for this. I am a preschool teacher. I went to school to be a preschool teacher. So even coming from working with children and families, I've always had this need to help people. And so Dee Dee's Cry just came out of that, just the need to make sure people are not going through the things that I went through and not receiving the help that I didn't receive. So I've been clean and sober going on 24 years. So I like to talk about that. And I also, what Dee Dee's Cry also, what we also have, what I love, is we have a signature program called Mental Health While Black. And I started Mental Health While Black in 2019. And at that time, you saw on the news like a lot of things, like people driving while Black, barbecuing while Black. And I was like, we need mental health while Black. And so the first Mental Health While Black in 2019, I just had a few friends of mine share their stories. Because I feel like when we share our stories, we are giving people permission to talk about it, what's going on with them. And we're also letting them see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And when I was 25, when I was having suicidal thoughts, I couldn't see that light. I couldn't see me being a preschool teacher. I couldn't see me having a suicide prevention organization. I couldn't even see tomorrow. So it's just letting people know that there is a tomorrow, there is a next week, there is a next year. Even with being clean and sober, I didn't ask for 23 years. I just asked God for a day. I was like, keep me clean and sober for a day. And I asked that every single day. And now it's 23 years later. So I just share my story, and others, and I have others come with lived experience, share their stories just to just help to lift the stigma, to let people know that it is okay to talk. So 2 weeks ago, we had our first Mental Health While Black Summit, and it was a full day event, and it was awesome. And we're also planning one for June for the men, which will be men focused, focus on men's health, mind, body, and spirit. And because we need to show men out there that it is okay to share, it is okay to hurt, and it is okay to heal. And that's what Dee Dee's Cry is about too, just showing people that it is okay to heal and set people on their healing journey. So our weekly group is called Healing Begins With Me, because even when I was out there drinking and drugging, of course, my kids didn't want me getting high. My family didn't want me getting high. But I couldn't get clean until I didn't want me getting high. And so that's why I call it Healing Begins With Me, because we have to take control of our healing. Because I realized the people that I felt that hurt me, they were living their lives. They were thriving, and I was just hurting. And so I learned I had to teach myself how to accept an apology that I've never received, and just to begin my healing journey. And I'm still on my healing journey. Don't be fooled. Like I'm still working, and it's a process. But the way the journey begins is just taking that first step. So it's realizing what your need is, what your hurt is, and then how do we go about setting ourselves on that healing path. So I love the work that I do today. I love me today. Like I have 2 daughters. I was a teen mom. I had my first child when I was 15, my second child when I was 16. And my sister died when I was 19. And that was around the time that I first started drinking. I had my first drink when I was 19. And when my sister died 3 months later, it just escalated. It's just escalated. And then the drug use came in. But like I said, I was numbing things that I've never addressed. And when I was 19, going through what I was going through, and I tell this story just to show the difference, because people be like, why is mental health while Black? You know, white people have mental problems too. Like we all have mental problems. But the thing is, when I was 19, I had a girlfriend who lived in Newton who was white. and she was seeing a therapist because she was getting a nose job. And at that time, I had already had 2 kids. I had 2 C-sections. I had been molested. I had been raped. I had been in a domestic violence relationship. I had been through a lot, and I didn't know that I should be seeing someone. I didn't know that it was okay to talk to someone. And so we know not everybody's going to see a therapist, not everybody trusts a therapist, but we do want to stress that find someone to talk to. And we live in a city where there are so many resources. And that's why I say Dee Dee's Cry will connect the community to the resources. So if you don't know how to, whatever your need is, I say reach out to us, reach out to a McLean's, reach out to a Mass General Brigham's. Like, the resources are there. Like, we don't have to go through this pain, and we don't have to carry these burdens by ourselves anymore. There are people that are out here that are willing, ready, and equipped to help us get through times, right? So Taryn, do you have any questions for me? Because I will just keep on talking.
Yeah, I actually did have a question come up as you were speaking. First of all, thank you for sharing so much of your story. That's incredibly generous to all of us here. And I was thinking about patterns that I've seen as well, where you described so well and succinctly of there are all of these traumas that people in our community are going through. We aren't able to access the types of care that could help us most. And then we end up trying to self-medicate and, move into substance use disorders and those kinds of spaces. And I find that a lot of good work has been done in the community around people being able to talk more about substance use disorders, but that there's still a lot of, I don't even want to say stigma, but like fear around other types of mental illnesses, like other types of mental health disorders. And I'm wondering how you have, and your organization has tried to help people deal with some of the more stigmatized conditions, like if and when people are experiencing psychosis or bipolar depression or borderline personality disorder, or even depression, which a lot of people are like, everyone's depressed, we're all sad, and so some of that stuff is so normalized, but also stigmatized at the same time. And I was just wondering how you've interacted with that through your work and patterns you may see as well.
Yes, so like I said, I am not a clinician, but people do reach out to Dee Dee's Cry to say, can you find me a therapist of color? So we do have people in the community who have compiled lists of therapists of color, so I will share that. And like I said, people call for many different things. I had someone call to say that their relative had just died by suicide, and they just wanted me to talk to the mother of the child who died. And I did that. So whatever the need is, and and people contact me different ways. They'll inbox me on Facebook to say, I'm having trouble with my son. He has a lot of anger. How can you help me? And I said, I sure can, because we don't turn anybody away. So whatever the need is, and there's a lot, people contact saying they're going through a divorce. Do you have any resources? Because it's so stressful to them in dealing with it. So, and like I said, and I'll just talk to people. I have some people that call me every week. Because like I said, I'm not a clinician, and I'll say it 100 times, but I am someone who can listen. And we all are someone who can listen. So I always just say, you know, listen to your friend, reach out to your friend, even the one who you think has it all together. That friend might be waiting for somebody to say, are you okay? And what can I do for you? Right? So.
Yeah, I think that peer support and that lived experience support is so critical to people's support and recovery, because there's a way that you can go and you can receive therapy and clinical care and whatever. But, you know, we always say the real work happens when you leave the therapy room. The real work happens when you leave, you know, you leave those places and you come back into the community, and you have to build out that strong network of people who can be in your day to day in order to sustain recovery, in order to make it real, because it's really about changing the whole way that you live, you know. And so I think what you and your organization does is just so valuable, both in connecting people to resources that they need, and also being able to locate all of these upstream stressors that can exacerbate people's mental illness. Like you said, we show up the way that people need us to show up. If their mental health condition is being exacerbated by what's going on at work, we will help them to figure that out. If it's being exacerbated during holiday times because money is super tight, we don't know what's going on, people need diapers, people need all, you know, people need all of this kind of stuff. And actually, when we talk about trauma, living in poverty, not having enough money, living in a city as expensive as Boston and not being able to access resource, that's a type of chronic ongoing trauma that increases people's risk for both developing mental illness, but also for exacerbating, you know, any mental illness that might be underlying there. So I just think the model that you're all working on is so critical, and is just a gap. You know, I think a lot of clinicians and big hospitals, you know, can struggle to figure out how to fill that gap, and that really is where community comes in.
Exactly. Because stress can also show up in physical form. It can make your high blood pressure go up. It can, a lot of things, cholesterol, your eating, you know, weight gain, all that. And so, yeah, we just try to help with that. Like I said, we don't have all the answers, but we're there to help. And we have, once COVID hit, our programming went virtual. So the good thing about that is that we reach more people. And so if you go on Dee Dee's Cry's Facebook page, you'll see like our under videos, our past panel discussions where we had a panel, Men Have Feelings Too, which is men talking about the things that they go through. We had hair and mental loss. Most of the panels discussion we have are kind of the things that I'm going through. I started losing my hair, I think it was like 2005, and I still struggle with it. As you can see, this is a wig, but I still struggle with it. Like I look in the mirror and I don't know that person because I've always had hair, and losing it like just over time, you know, just really has been stressful for me. So we had a panel discussion about hair and mental health. We had a discussion about finances and mental health, because we know finances is a major stressor, right? What else we do? We also did activism advocates of mental health, people who advocate for mental health. We had that panel. And I am so excited about the summit we're going to have in June, the men's summit. Definitely.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I'm really excited. I'm seeing that there's actually some questions coming in to the chat, so I'm going to pose some of those to you, Toy. So an anonymous attendee said, can you speak to some of the barriers to accessing mental health in the community and how Dee Dee's Cry helps break down those barriers?
So to me, why I started Dee Dee's Cry, because I felt like just the location was a barrier, and not seeing anybody who looked like me was definitely a barrier. Just being on those websites, that just really turned me off. I was like this wasn't made for me. So it's really, I'm really mindful that when I do my flyers, that we have our pictures on it so people can see that it's for them. And of course, we know that suicide and mental health doesn't know any zip codes or racial barriers. So of course, it's for anyone. Nobody is ever turned away, but our main focus is on the Black community. But and costs. So Dee Dee's Cry, our events and stuff are free because we feel like cost is a barrier. So we don't charge for the services we provide. So that's how Dee Dee's Cry conquers the barriers. We make sure that our events are accessible, that, it's free, and that people see people who look like them.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, we have another question from Daya. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name correctly. What can people in the community do to help someone who we think is suffering? How do we know when to ask for help and it's beyond us?
So for one, you have to be direct and say, do you feel suicidal? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Do you have a plan to hurt yourself? So once you ask those questions, then you will know your next step. So, and that's basically when you'll know when to listen and when to get more help, because it's beyond your capacity. So from those questions answered, that would be your next step. And I did see that y'all popped up the suicide prevention hotline. There's also McLean Hospital, and there, yes, so definitely seek help when it's beyond your capacity, but always first ask, do you feel like killing yourself? Right.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful because it can be really scary to ask people those questions, those direct questions. And sometimes, like you said, there's someone who's been crying out, but no one's come and really asked that to them directly,
Yes.
And that is really powerful, just being able to get right to the heart of it. Like, what's going on? You got to let me know. Someone asked, what is the best way for people in the greater Boston community to support Dee Dee's Cry?
Of course, the best way would be to make a donation because, like I said, our services are free. And the way we get funding, it wasn't until COVID that we got funding. Everything that I did was kind of out of pocket. And but the resources that we received had to go back out into the community. So it would be nice, like if me and my team had received a salary for the work that we do, but we're not there yet. And of course, if we're having an event, volunteer. So definitely need volunteers and definitely need funding.
Okay, excellent. And that actually answered someone else's question who asked, where does Dee Dee's Cry funding come from? Is it from fundraising? So you said mostly from donations, and then during COVID, you got a larger gift. Was that from a specific organization or?
The Resiliency Fund. We received funding from the Boston Public Health Commission. And our event, Let me see, we had donations from Mass General Brigham's, NAACP, My Brother's Keeper Alliance, the City of Boston, the Massachusetts League of Community Health Centers, and NAMI, and the Massachusetts Alliance for Mental Health, DMH, BMC, and I'm just looking at the, I brought home the big giant cardboard. I was like, yes, I'm like, I am keeping this. That has all the sponsors on it.
That's
So,
awesome. And you should be getting money from all of those places. You know? Someone just asked, can you let us know a little bit more about asking someone directly about suicidal feelings? If we talk about it, does it increase suicidal feelings?
no, it does not. And when you ask that question, make sure you are ready to receive the answer. Do not ask if you're not ready to hear, yes, I am, right? If you're not ready to do the next step. But no, asking directly, just think about anything. Just think of just times when people just danced around and how mad you, not even that, just how you didn't get what you wanted because you wasn't direct. So if you're not direct with saying that, asking that, you're not going to get the answer, because you can think it like, I wonder if they're crying out for help. I wonder if they're drinking to numb their pain. Ask them. Is there something you want to talk about? But like I said, don't do it if you're not ready to have that conversation, because you could be inflicting more harm than good.
Can you talk a little bit more about what it means to you to be ready for that conversation?
So what I mean for that is just going the next step. So think about it. Have that conversation in your head. So if I ask my child, do you feel suicidal? And they said yes, then what are you prepared to do? Like if you feel like if they say yes, I'm going to yell at them and I'm going to try to, convince them that's not the way to go, or call them stupid. Like, when I was growing up, what was said, if you grew up around church people, you're going to go to hell if you do that. Like, that's not a response that somebody needs to hear at that moment. So that's what I mean. Just make sure you're ready to receive that answer and respond to it.
And what are some other ways of responding to someone disclosing that they are suicidal? What are the next steps that you would take?
You always want to ask them, do you want me to take you someplace, right? Because like I said, I wasn't able to get clean until I was ready to get clean. So nobody couldn't put me into a detox. It was when I took myself to a detox that I was clean and sober. And then even that, I stayed clean and sober for 4 years and then fell off the wagon. And then I was out there another 2 years before I said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I'm tired of it. So they need to be ready to receive the help, because the same thing, if they're not ready to receive the help, it's not going to work.
Yeah, and I think it's important also just as a clinician that, when someone discloses that they're suicidal and they do have a plan, that's a time where you should probably take someone to the emergency room, right? And I think that especially in our community, that can be really scary and really intense. I don't think I've ever met a Black person who would want, a wellness check called on them and have the police come and take them to the hospital. And I think part of you saying, are you ready for those next steps? The next step could also be, I'm gonna drive to the hospital with you, and I'm gonna sit with you, and I'm gonna accompany you through this process, instead of, someone making a disclosure and, like you said, just not being not being prepared to.
Yeah, like, bye, I'm going home now. I gotta pick my child up from school. Like, no, be prepared. Like you said, it might be hours. You might have to take them to the hospital and sit with them. So be prepared. So yes.
Do we have any more questions that people would like to raise for Toy?
If not, I could start on the Roxbury Unity Parade.
Do you have recommendations for how people can find a therapist of color?
Well, for one, Google. That's always a good place to start. And your primary care. When I needed somebody to talk to, I told my primary care. I go to Whittier Street. So at Whittier Street, like all my services are there. I get my mammogram there, my behavioral health, dental, like everything. So that's a good place to start, is with your primary care, to see if you could get that referral. Depending on your insurance, you might need a referral.
Yeah, and also, I don't know if you have worked at all with the Black Emotional and Mental Health Collective with BEAM, but they have some hotlines. They have something they call the Black Line, and it's peer support, counseling, witnessing that you can call at any time. It looks like someone just said, Dr. Charmaine Jackman, they put in a link here. There's a free therapist of color directory, and they're Boston based. So that is obviously a great resource. And
Yes.
like Toy said, if you Google just, black therapists in my area, so many people have compiled resources to make sure that you can access.
Yeah, and like I said, Dee Dee's Cry has that resource list too. But yep, depending on where.
Website.
So we are in Boston. I don't know where the people are, but if you are not in Boston, definitely Google to see what's in your area. But Boston, we have a lot of awesome organizations that will assist you with that. Like I said, Charmaine has an awesome organization that helps with that too.
Beautiful. And someone just said, what are some tips that you can recommend for people to use at home to address mental health, since there is such a high demand and wait for appointments?
Would you like to take that one? Because like I said, I am not a clinician. I am someone who connects the community to the resource. So me, when I put in for a therapist to speak to someone in March, I didn't get someone until August. And to me, that was a long wait. That was definitely a long wait. So even I was thinking about, there are apps out there that you can use. I was going to do that, but I just, waited it out. But for those who can't wait, if you have some suggestions for them to do.
Yeah, I think you're right on with what you just said, right? So there's online resources that you can tap into. There are hotlines that you can call just to talk to someone. And I think really leaning into regular peer support programs can be helpful. So Toy mentioned that Dee Dee's Cry has some regularly meeting peer mental health support circles. And then I also think, what you were saying before, Toy, about being more open with safe friends and family members about what's going on for you, and trying to ask for support, trying to ask for things that will decrease your stress load. Like maybe asking your neighbor, they love to cook, can you help me with food a little bit? The next couple months, I'm really struggling and I need, whatever, or I'm really under financial stress. Can I see if someone will help me out on that end? So just generally trying to decrease stress as much as possible and looping into the community resources while you're waiting of all of the peer support groups that you can access. And so many peer support groups are virtual now, to include like 12-step groups, recovery groups can be really helpful. And I will say that if you're really in a state of crisis, the fastest way to get care is to go to the emergency room. And, whether or not you're appropriate for an inpatient unit, there are also outpatient programming that you can be connected to if you're in crisis. There's partial inpatient programming where you're not staying at the hospital, but you're in group therapy, you're connected with a psychiatrist. So if you are really, you just cannot wait, don't wait, go to the emergency room and try to get access to some other clinicians and some more intensive programming. That's what I would say. Now, someone just said, can you talk more about the event in June and mental health support for men?
So the event in June is free. If you go on Dee Dee's Cry's page, look under events, the event is called Dee Dee's Cry, Men's Mind, Body, and Spirit. The link to register is there. So it's a full day. It's on a Friday, June 3rd. It will be at Encore Boston. Encore has 4 levels of free parking and they have free valet. They also pick up, if you go on their website, they have free shuttles that pick up people, like from the Orange Line. They'll pick you up at Wellington Station and bring you there. So to me, Encore is not Boston, but it's very accessible in that sense. Like I said, it's full day, it's breakfast, it starts at 8 a.m. There are workshops, breakout room, keynote speakers. And at the end of the day, there will be live music. Dee Dee's Cry always try to incorporate live music in the arts, whether it's spoken word or live performance, because we just feel like people just need that lift me up spirit before they go, after dealing with some certain subjects and stuff. So it's going to be great, but it is limited space. So make sure that you register early. Mental Health While Black Summit, we had an open registration for 175 and that went so quickly. And even the waiting list, we had to shut off the waiting list because it was just too much. So make sure you register early to make sure that you get in.
And where can people register?
It's a link that the web designer made, so I don't have it on hand, but it's on the event page. So
Okay.
if you go on to Facebook, yes.
Okay. And someone's Thaddeus Miles said, can you talk about the importance of the Roxbury Unity Parade and how it impacts the well-being of the community?
Sure can. Good morning, Thaddeus. So the Roxbury Unity Parade, that was placed on my heart to start that around the same time I started Dee Dee's Cry. So I had the idea prior, but I just didn't work on it. I was like, wait a minute, Rosendale has a parade, Dorchester has a parade. How come Roxbury, I'm from Roxbury, doesn't have a parade? But it wasn't to 2017, when there was a lot of violence in the city, that I felt like my city was hurting, that I felt like, okay, I need to do this. And that's why it's called Unity Parade, to bring people together. And I always say, like so many times, the news show Roxbury in a bad light, that there's so much good that happens in Roxbury. So the Roxbury Unity Parade is about highlighting the good that happens in Roxbury too. So it is every 3rd Sunday in July. So this year is July 17th. We usually go from Malcolm X Boulevard to Malcolm X Park, but since they're starting construction in the spring of Malcolm X Park, this year we'll be going to Ramsey Park in the South End. So it's not a long distance, but it's fun. And I realize, and it's so funny with it being in July, like we've been through a heat wave, we've been through torrential rain and everything. And people's like, why do you have it in July? I was like, well, June is the Mother's Day walk, the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute Mother's Day walk in May. And I'm like, in June is Juneteenth. And then August, you have the Caribbean Festival. And I was like, nothing's happening in July. I was like, I'll do it in July. Not thinking, yeah, Toy, your birthday's in July. Like, yeah, I didn't think about that. So that's why it's in July. And we give awards. And we've been doing that since the beginning. And somebody was like, Toy, how are you giving away awards if it's a parade? And I was like, no, I need to celebrate those who uplift Roxbury every day. Because I'm like, these people are out here doing the work and making Roxbury just another better place to live in. And so it's really about, letting the kids know in the community that they come from rich soil and there's nothing to shame. You don't have to be ashamed because you're in Roxbury. Because growing up, when I grew up in the 60s and 70s, people talked about Roxbury like it was bad, and they still do. But Roxbury has so much culture, and even when I did the logo, Liz Miranda, before she ran for state rep, she helped me with that. She was like, Toy, stop when you see something. We was on a website. And I was like, oh, I want that. I want the tree. And she was like, oh, that's a good choice. Roxbury is known for the trees, the orchard trees. And she was like, what color do you want it? And I was like, red, black, and green. So I knew, because to me, Roxbury was, Black Boston. And then after the first year, and I was like, why can't this parade be for Black Boston? There's the Caribbean parade. There's the Dominican Festival, the Puerto Rican Festival. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, this parade is going to celebrate Black Boston, our culture, our excellence, and our contributions.
I'll see you there. So
yes,
I will see you there in July. That really is awesome. That sounds really beautiful. And now I feel like I have context for stuff that I would see going on in July. I was like, people are out, everybody's out here. What is going on? But now I feel like that might have been what I was seeing. So
yeah. And so during COVID, what was that, 2020? The Roxbury Unity Parade was the only parade that did not cancel. Mm-hmm. Every parade canceled that year, but we became a caravan. I felt like it was important, since COVID was hitting the Black community disproportionately more so, that it was just important for us to be out there to show Roxbury some love. And we became a caravan. Everybody stayed in their cars, and we rode through the neighborhood and just beeping, and our cars were decorated.
Okay.
And it was awesome. And I have to give a shout out to Michelle Wu, because she was the only elected official to show up. So I always say, you're the only one who's been to every single Roxbury Unity Parade. So this will be year 5 for us.
Amazing. Looks like we got some feedback in the Q&A from Cindy Diggs. Cindy said, I attended the Mental Health While Black Summit 2 weeks ago. It was amazing. I definitely recommend registering early. And I saw that someone from the People's Heart team dropped a link with deedescry.com/events. So it sounds like you need to click the link if you want a chance of being able to go. Any more questions? I think we're about to be wrapping up here in the next couple of minutes, or is there anything that you really wanted to close with, Toy?
That I want to close with. Definitely go on Facebook, like the page, because that way you'll get notified whenever we have an event. I believe Facebook does that. Once you like the page, it'll know whenever we create an event and post. Follow us on Instagram, Dee Dee's Cry. What else? Twitter, at Dee Dee's Cry. I'm on Twitter, Toy Drew 1. Long story why that's my handle. Yeah, and I'm on Facebook, but I'm at my limit. But you can follow me on Facebook if you like. But definitely make a donation. Go on Dee Dee's Cry's page, deedescry.com, DeeDeesCry.com. The Roxbury Unity Parade, RoxburyUnityParade.com. If you want to reach out to me, DeeDeesCry@yahoo.com. If you want to give me a call, 781-309-8340.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Toy, for all of your great work and for spending time talking to all of us today. I'm sure that I will be seeing more of you soon. Can't wait to have you at McLean.
This is from Thaddeus Miles to everyone. I'm so thankful for all you do to change and save lives, Queen, with a big exclamation. Geneva Gordon to everyone, thank you for addressing the real mental health issues that Black and Brown people experience. Damian Leach, to everyone, it was incredible to be at the Dee Dee's Cry Mental Health While Black Summit a couple of weeks ago, still feeling so uplifted from that event. Dr. Charmaine Jackson, thanks for the wonderful work that you are doing to raise mental health in the communities of color. Our missions are so aligned. Dr. Charmaine Jackson also popped back in and said, so important to focus on men's mental health. Absolutely. Toy, thanks for sharing your story. Wonderful conversation.
Awesome. Thank you. So the Men's Summit's going to be awesome. I did invite Thaddeus Mile. He has this awesome project called the Black Joy Project. And I was like, please, you have to come and do a workshop on that and stuff, and want to talk about fatherhood and physical health and mentoring, the importance of mentoring young kings. It's going to be an awesome day.
He had popped in and said how you have been impacting the well-being of the community just with the Unity Parade as well. Thank you so much, Toy, for everything you're doing. And thank you, Taryn, for hosting the conversation. Shakita Stafford. Dee Dee's Cry rocks. I'm so grateful for this organization and the resources you provide to our Black community.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. Thank you for all the information and for letting us know what you've been doing already. And so we can join in and support you in moving this forward in however you need. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much to the People's Heart for organizing this event.
Yes. And thank you for inviting me.